Sirens. The word evokes images of scantily clad, beautiful women on a rocky coast singing enchanted songs and luring unsuspecting sailors to their untimely demise. This portrayal of feminine energy as dangerous and derogatory has demeaned the definition and the dignity of womanhood since the derivation of this imagery in ancient civilizations. This is just one of many unsavory ways that females have been portrayed throughout the ages that attempts to standardize their subordination. Works of early British literature provide a clear illustration of how women were viewed in their respective time periods through the portrayal of their female characters. A cursory glance at popular pieces in this genre, epic poems, plays, the Arthurian tales, even Greek myths from which much of their inspiration was derived, begs the question, where are the women? This discussion will comb through several works of early British literature in search of the sirens and dissecting the roles of the women in these stories. The story of Beowulf names 6 female characters, but the sole female character that shares the main stage in this story is Grendel's mother. She's introduced in lines 1258 as a monstrous hell bride. And even as a monster, Grendel's mother is compartmentalized by her femaleness. An example of this is shown in lines 1350 through 54, which reads, "One of these things, as far as anyone ever can discern, looks like a woman. The other, warped in the shape of a man, moves beyond the pale, bigger than any man, an unnatural birth called Grendel by the country people." So both of these things are concluded to be the same general species of terrifying monster. However, Grendel, who is in the shape of a man, somehow bears more intimidation or influence, obvious by the fact that he is given a name. Grendel's mother is only known nominally through her association with a male counterpart. Lines 1282 through 87 diminish even her merit as a gruesome killer by reason of her gender. Her onslaught was less, only by as much as an Amazon warrior's strength is less than an armed man's. So this essentially asserts that compared to the attack they suffered at Grendel's hands, her attack was definitely less than, even if only a little bit. This story of Beowulf has remained popular over time, and in 2007, filmmakers created a movie rendition featuring well-known actress Angelina Jolie portraying Grendel's mother. In typical Hollywood fashion, the character is overtly sexualized, and Grendel's mother is shown attempting to seduce Beowulf. This use of womanly charm to bring down a man, this display of woman as a temptress, a siren, if you will, is a commonality that persists in the subsequent examples. The tales about King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table are some of the most well-known stories to come out of early British literature. The story of the affair between Lancelot and Guinevere may contend for most popular, but one sample from the Arthurian collection that exhibits a view of women as sexually promiscuous and deceitful is in Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. The example is twofold in Lady Bertilac and Morgan Le Fay as far as representation for women. Lady Bertilac is described as the fairest among them. Her face, her flesh, her complexion, her quality, her bearing, her body, more glorious than Guinevere. And that's in lines 943 through 45. During Gawain's stay, she makes copious attempts to seduce him, and other than a continued emphasis of her physical beauty, this is all the substance of which she consists. This portrayal of Lady Bertilac fails to round out her character in any way, and in Gawain's exchange with the Green Knight, he says, "Yet all were charmed and changed by wily womankind. I suffered just the same, but clear me of my crime." So he's saying, come on, you know how women are. Everybody falls prey to their wicked ways at some point. I haven't really done anything. It was her that seduced me after all. Gawain takes little responsibility in his part with the exchange with Lady Bertilac, but instead blames the fact that women are apparently widely known to be lascivious and deceitful. He reduces Lady Bertilac to a seductress, a siren. Eventually, Gawain proclaims some accountability when he testifies to his home court of the Round Table that he would cherish the green belt as a reminder of how even a knight so noble as him could dishonor himself. This doesn't absolve him of anything, though, because this in no way redeems the objectification of Lady Bertilac. It only highlights a narcissistic urge to glorify himself by means of ostentatious self-deprecation. In the end, the reader discovers that it is the sorceress Morgan Le Fay who orchestrated Gawain's quest and to test the honor of the Knights of the Round Table. However, she's briefly mentioned, blamed for the trickery, and then forgotten about. If the supernatural driving force that orchestrated an elaborate trick on an entire foreign court had been a male, there would have been a whole Wizard of Oz-esque man behind the curtain reveal, and the story would have probably contained a fifth book to explain his significance. The myths of ancient Greece, which is precisely where the sirens originated, had a profound influence on the thinking and education of the subsequent eras. So it's no surprise that the same subjugation of women in the works of the Middle Ages has roots in its literary predecessors. In the myth of Jason and the quest for the Golden Fleece, the few female characters that are depicted are all described as scheming and subsidiary, inept. The primary female character is Medea, who is manipulated on two fronts to fall in love with Jason and help him achieve his goals. Directly from the story, we see how Jason and his crew designed their entire plan around Jason pursuing Medea. It says, there was nothing she could not do. If she were persuaded to help, she could make Jason able to conquer the bulls and the dragon teeth men. It seemed the only plan that offered any hope, and they urged the prince to go back and try to win Medea over. Once she had been adequately used for her talents and magic, Jason was ready to dispose of her. Another sample from Greek mythology is in the stories of Prometheus. Io, through no fault of her own, has suffered immensely, and Prometheus says to her, as if faulting her for her misery, "You made the gods' heart hot with love." Zeus fell in love with her, sent her dreams and visions, and then delivered her over to an extreme and unjust fate. As if to redeem Io's tragic fate, from her lineage sprang the mighty famed Hercules. But how from this does Io benefit? Is it supposed to make her feel better that one day, decades after she's dead, there will be a man descended from her rape baby that saves the lives of other people? If anything, this just emphasizes how men were viewed as superior to women. Christopher Marlowe's play, Dr. Faustus, from the 16th century, is almost completely devoid of female characters. One of the two present is Helen of Troy, who is objectified for her beauty, as usual. Scene 12 opens with the scholars telling Faustus, "Since our conference about fair ladies, which was the beautifulest in all the world, we have determined with ourselves that Helen of Greece was the admirablest lady that ever lived." The scholars ask Faustus to conjure up the spirit of Helen, who they deemed most beautiful, just so they could look at her. The very fact that a group of educated men held an entire conference to debate the beauty of all the women in the world displays a level of misogyny that is unfathomable to modern audiences. Helen is simply a commodity, no different from the livestock at the market. She serves no purpose other than to be an object of lust. The other female character in Dr. Faustus is the Duchess. She exists in the play solely to fill a one-dimensional breast-shaped slot for a counterpart to the male authority. An additional aspect that emphasizes the nature of innate sexism is that in Marlowe's time, the play would have been performed by an all-male cast, as women were not generally permitted to take part. John Milton's Paradise Lost from the early 17th century is a fictional extension of the biblical creation story. There are two female entities named throughout this piece, and before the reader ever meets Eve, the first human woman, there is sin. Sin is identified as Satan's daughter. By personifying sin, immorality, wickedness, evil, as female, the message is clear that feminine energy is inherently bad. This portrayal corroborates one seen in prior works of women as deceitful, conniving, and unwholesome. The other female representation from this work is Eve. She's the first human woman, and her naivety and submission are continually reiterated. In lines 635 through 38, she expressly indicates, "What thou biddest, unargued I obey. So God ordains. God is thy law, thou mine. To know no more is woman's happiest knowledge in her praise." She's depicted as fragile, narcissistic, vulnerable, and easily swayed by flattery. She serves as a reminder of the secondary classification of women, and the reason for that classification is she bears the bulk of the blame for her shared fate with Adam. This search for sirens has revealed the locations of the women in these stories and has revealed some important truths about the ways women have been viewed historically. The female characters in these pieces, whether objectified, sexualized, or villainized, uncover a foundation of oppression upon which multiple societies and cultures have based their beliefs, attitudes, and ways of life. The effects of this are evident, arguably now more than ever, as reproductive rights are in jeopardy. Conversations like the one generated in this discussion are necessary implements to invoke a positive change.